Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, and you're looking at what I got for Christmas this year. 3 Hoth hats. What's that about? Okay, there's a bit of a story behind this, so this video might be a bit lengthy. I was going to post, because I always post every year, what did I get for Christmas, and there was a reason I delayed doing this until now. But let's get into it. So, yeah, I've got 3 Hoth hats, 3 of the hats that the rebel soldiers wear in The Empire Strikes Back on Hoth. Now, why? Well, I haven't really posted any videos about this yet, but my wife and I have actually gone to some of the Star Wars locations in various vacations we've taken in the past. We've been to Tatooine, and in fact we've been to 2 different locations for Tatooine. I'm going to do a video about that in the future. I just figured I wanted to slowly tease out these things that I've done that are Star Wars related. We've also been to Endor, at least as much as Endor exists today. And again, I'm going to do that video with proper depth and length sometime in the future. I have always toyed with the notion, well, to round it all out, we really should go to Hoth. I mean, that just makes sense. And if I'm going to do that, now that's Norway, that's expensive, that's in the future, maybe depending on different things. But I just thought, well, if I'm going to go to Norway, if I'm going all the way there, it just makes sense to get a Hoth hat to wear on that trip. And that ended up being a much larger proposition than I had originally thought. What we're looking at here are 3 different versions of the Hoth hat. The one down here is actually one that I was making myself. And it's a lot harder, as I'm going to pull it out in a second and show you in more detail. It's a lot harder to make these things than you just think. Now, the inspiration for making the Hoth hat to begin with actually started with this. I found this baseball cap kind of sort of thing. I'm not sure if it's not exactly a baseball cap, but I saw this in a shop and I thought, you know what, that's practically half of the work done for me already. If I wanted to just maybe put 2 baseball cap rims together on top of that, I've basically got a Hoth hat, or at least the beginnings of one. And that was nice in theory, and what you're seeing there is kind of the end result of that. But there's much more to the story. It may not be coming out in the camera very well. This is a tan brown color, and the Hoth hat that I started working on is more of a grayish color. And you're probably wondering why, especially when you've got these other ones that are much more white. Okay, let me go into that. When I was first toying with turning that baseball cap into a Hoth hat, what I had in my mind was this guy, the standard Rebel Star Wars action figure. And his hat is a whitish, creamish sort of a mold or color there. But I couldn't quite, in my head, wrap my head around like exactly what color is that. Especially since some shots in the movie, the hat really looks like a grayish color, like it's quite drab and dark. It's worth noting that in my memory of the film, the scenes I was not aware of cinematography. I was not aware of how you have to balance the lighting so that all of the white of the snow around the rebels has to be not completely bleeding out the shot. So my guess is they probably turned down the contrast, or they did some changing of the film, or set the light meters in such a way that anything that wasn't pure Arctic white would look like a darker gray color. And so therefore, when I was thinking in my head, well, what color is the Rebel Trooper Hoth hat? What is it originally? What sort of a tone is it? I thought to myself, it's a grayish color. And that's why when I was trying to match this action figure, which in this light looks a lot more like these 2 hats over here, in my head, I was thinking this was actually the right color. Now let me lift this guy out. A slight spoiler, this is a full hat, this is a full hat, this is not. This is actually just a visor, and I'll get into why I got that in a sec. But let's have a look at what I was making. Now, it's also very much under construction. There's a little 3D printed piece for one of these guys to eventually use as the radio. Now, It's about to fall apart because, as you can see, I was just taking a couple of baseball cap pieces and sticking them on the very gray hat that I was making. Now, I'm going to reveal this was actually largely my wife's sewing job, and she did an amazing job here. You can just about make out there was the original baseball cap underneath, and it had a pretty good shape. It looks about the right kind of not baseball hat, but more cylindrical shape that the Rebel Hoth hat was. And what we did was I cut out a piece of paper to match this sort of neck guard piece here, and I made sure it would fit around my head properly. And then my wife very diligently did this. I don't know what the name of this cross pattern is, but it ended up being really, really difficult to sew. And then we had to put this bias tape around the edge to kind of make it look finished properly. And when it was all said and done, this gray did not match the gray of the original baseball cap underneath, so my wife very nicely made a proper top out of the material we were using. But I remember thinking to myself, okay, now all I got to do is get some baseball cap lid, sort of front lids here, whatever they're called, these pieces. I thought, well, I'll just glue those in place, and that's eventually going to be my Hoth hat. It took a long time to find a particular shade of gray that in my mind matched what the Hoth hat color was, and even longer to find a piece of bias tape I could put around the edges because, well, let's just grab the visor. The actual Hoth hat has a darker color for the rim and the separator here than these pieces. So no problem, I thought. I've got a gray baseball cap that I've cut the little front lid off here, and I'll just find a darker bias tape to make this sort of idea work. And it was very hard to find a bias tape of slightly darker color without getting into like very, very brown or very, very black. And eventually we got one, but by that point, then I was thinking, okay, so now all I have to do is glue this on the front. How the heck is this going to work? And, you know, it started to really fall apart very quickly. I just thought, you know what, this thing is going to look ridiculous if I eventually ever get it finished. But I felt bad after all that stitching that my wife did. And then I felt really bad because I was checking for advice on how do other people make these things work. I was checking different Hoth hats that have been made by groups like, for example, the RPF. And in every case, their hats were much lighter in color. And I was like, was it really that creamy and almost white in certain bits? I mean, let me just reveal back to these proper Hoth hats over here. They're very white. And I thought, no, that can't be right. Again, I'm thinking in terms of this guy, right? But then I do remember also getting the other Rebel Hoth figures, like this guy who was down in the trenches. And his is very, very white. But the final insult to injury, if you will, was Luke himself. Luke's hat is practically white on this action figure. And I was like, I may have made a miscalculation. And that's when it started to occur to me, yeah, for the film, they probably made the contrast or the light readings of their filmmaking. They probably discovered that these white hats have got to be toned down a lot in order to appear properly on screen, which is why in my memory, I thought the hats were much darker, much more like that gray one over there. Nope, they are actually much whiter, almost creamy, like the end result that you see over there. And I was checking if I'm ever going to go to Norway, has anybody done it? I was looking at various trips people have made. And people have not only gone to the hotel where the sequences were filmed and the cast and crew stayed, but also that hotel has managed to keep a original Hoth hat from the filming. They have it in their possession, and some guests have been able to take pictures of it, and some guys have even worn it. I don't know if the hotel still does that, because I'm sure they get more and more visitors every year, but yes, lo and behold, it's a much lighter, creamier color than this gray monstrosity that I've been working on all this time. And I just thought, I can't possibly work on this anymore. This thing is terrible. So that kind of left that one off the list. I'm not making a dark gray Hoth hat. Then what am I going to do? Well, that's where this guy comes in. I started to search eBay for Hoth hats. I thought, well, surely somebody somewhere makes these things. There's lots of different people making lots of different Star Wars related items, and I did a search for Hoth hats. There were a lot of, certainly a lot of toy ones, ones you can put on your 1/6 scale figures, that kind of thing. So, and a heck of a lot of Lego ones. I had to refine my search to stop bringing up those as results. And eventually, I found this. A sale for the Hoth visor, and because in this picture they had wrapped it around with a scarf and everything, I thought, oh, that's pretty close. But then I noticed in some of the close-ups, it did say, no, it's just a visor. You'll have to work out the rest of it yourself. And I thought, okay, well, admittedly, having now tried with the baseball cap routine, I thought, you know what, if I just get this, and I maybe try and do this thing again, but in a, if I can color match this material, or the one that's going to be this piece here, if I could color match it to this proper Hoth hat cream color, then I could maybe jury rig together a proper Hoth hat out of this. So I thought, okay, well, it's only 17 bucks. I'll order it, and that will be the step toward the proper Hoth hat. And then I can't remember what I was looking for. Maybe the boots. I thought, well, that's going to be a really, really challenging final part of this entire endeavor. If you're going to go full-on Rebel Trooper, the boots are very, very difficult to pull off. And that is still kind of on my to-do list. But I started to expand my search of not just Hoth hats, not just Hoth, but anything Star Wars costume related. And that's when I found this listing here. Yes, somebody makes actual Hoth hats fully. It's a rather high price tag, and certainly not what I was happy to spend, but having run into a lot of hiccups with making my own Hoth hat, and now with this visor thing that was kind of halfway there, I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna think about maybe getting this one from a lady out of Quebec. The ironic thing was I saw this listing the day after I had placed my order for the visor, and I quickly went to eBay and said, can I reverse my purchase of the visor for $17? And unfortunately, I got a reply back like, yeah, you could have within the first couple of hours, but now that the day's gone by, it's on its way to you. So I thought, okay, well, all right, so I've got two Hoth hats then, whatever. So yeah, this, I don't know, maybe I'll get some final value out of it. Maybe I'll just use it on a sunny day or something. And if not, I certainly have some coworkers and friends and family who I'm sure somebody will take this thing off my hands. So, sure, it was only $17, kind of wasted, but well, maybe make it work somehow. With Christmas coming, it was definitely time for me to think about getting this much nicer Hoth hat. And my goodness, this thing is beautiful. I mean, the lady really did some great work on this thing. Yes, you've got the visor. You've got that piece with the cross-stitching there. It fits very nicely. Interestingly, the rim is not really actually attached, like you can see right through there. There is one piece that's got it sewn on, but that's not how I would have imagined doing it. I would have thought, well, you got to glue the ever-living heck out of that thing, but then would that be very structurally sound? Wouldn't you end up with like a big, nasty, wet mark inside here or something? But no, I think what she's done is sewed it together here, and there's that connecting piece and there, and done a very nice job of it. Now, the other thing that I kind of feel like, well, you need to do it. If you're getting a Hoth hat, you need to do this, are these little, what would you call those things? Like belt loops around the back and the sides that the scarf goes through. It never really occurred to me until I did my research on the Hoth hat that, yeah, they actually ran their scarf through these belt loops. And you even see Luke at the beginning of the film, he's got his face all wrapped up, and he pulls it off when he extends his goggles up on top. He's got the scarf running through these little belt loops, and these are not easy to do. Again, imagine I tried to make this on this gray one. This would have been piles and piles of work. This lady's done a very good job. In fact, they're all Velcroed. You can just easily snap things in and out. And it goes all the way around. And it's got a nice finish on it. She's even got a little thing here so that the chin strap will attach properly. A million times better than any Hoth hat I was ever going to make. So when Christmas came along and my wife was like, well, what do you want for Christmas? I was like, well, I mean, it's a little bit pricey. It's more than I was wanting to spend. But if you're looking for a suggestion for Christmas time, I'd like to get this thing, or I have my eyes on something. And she said, great, okay, well, I'll sign the check. If I don't have to buy the thing, if I don't have to wrap it up, then sure, great. You just go ahead and order whatever you like. And so therefore I did. Little side note, I actually kept her in the dark about it. I kept it, I got the box in time for Christmas, wrapped it up, put it under the tree, or the traditional Christmas telescope for those of you who've been watching. And yeah, on the day I opened it up and I showed it to her, and I'm very, very pleased with this Hoth hat. And it's the right colors, it's got the right finish, it matches what those ones are that fans make, and also the one from the hotel in Norway. This thing is really, really nice. So, yes, unfortunately I've got 3 Hoth hats, but this one is the final one, and I love it. I think it looks great. So now you're probably asking me, well, what does it look like on your head? Let's give it a try. All right, well, let's try on the hat and show you what the final product looks like on my head. There we go. What do you think? It's pretty good in profile. Looking good. Yes, it does need this thing attached here. Where's the panel? There's like a little... Yeah. I need to attach that there. I'm going to work on that still. That's an in-progress, under construction part of it. But if I then attach the chin strap here, yeah, it fits really well. I was a little worried. The lady in her sale said, please give me your hat size, which I happen to know from the top hat, or the measurement around your head in centimeters. So I sent her both. I was like, well, I'm a 7.5 hat or 60 centimeters, and I just hoped what would arrive would actually fit, but it does. It's snug. I won't be able to put anything else that's warmer on underneath, but yeah. Oh, and let's not forget, gotta have the goggles. There we go. And so if I really wanted to go fully Luke at the beginning of the movie, I guess I'd wrap that around here, and this will go around here. I know you can't hear me, but Luke had that kind of routine. Put those over here. There we go. Is that looking right? Can you hear a word I'm saying? Probably not. Anyway, and then I can sort of look around and do the bit in the film where he's like pulling that away and sees the probot. Calls Echo 7. Anyway, right. So there we go. There is the Hoth hat. It feels really good on my head, and I'm very, very happy. What a great present. In fact, there's probably one more thing I should do. Ah, well, that's much better. Yes. Now I'm ready. I'm ready for sleep. I'm ready for a trip to Norway. This will do well. Well, sweet dreams, everybody. And until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole. Ben, Dagobah, Yoda.